hello again. I'm Siobhan from Unicorn Foundation New Zealand. Thanks, Ron. So I've realised that not everyone knows where New Zealand is, so I thought I would point it out because, in case you don't. So obviously we're not part of Australia like everybody thinks we are, but we are very much on the other side of the world, and we have just a small population. It's around 4.4 million, which has its pros and cons, which I'll explain. So nets in New Zealand, I can tell you that we do have some stats on our incidence rates from research, and there's a net registry being collected at the moment, and there's retrospective data being collected for the past 10 years, and that data is going to be released very soon. And being a population of 4.4 million, we can capture the whole country, so it's going to be really exciting to have that data. And so what we communicate is that 1 New Zealander is diagnosed every day, and therefore we do not call it a rare cancer, and I avoid that word at all costs in our communications around New Zealand. And especially, I know there's, I know this is it could be an issue for some organisations, but for us it's really important to not be considered rare, because we find that no one particularly cares about rare, which is a bit harsh, but when you say a rare cancer, people tend to switch off because they don't think it will affect them. So it's important for us to communicate it as an uncommon cancer. We know in New Zealand that it's more common than thyroid, brain, cervical and ovarian cancers, which, cervical and ovarian cancers get a lot of press in our country. So it's important to stress that point. We know we've got around about 2,000 New Zealanders affected. Our health system is a free public health system, however, you'll see we don't actually have anything, so access is really poor, and the private insurance is also pretty bad. We've been going for roughly 4 years, and we are a very small team, but very ambitious. So my slide will show that we have a lot of no's, and I've put the companies because this points out, you can see the only pharma company that we have is Novartis. So in terms of funding, we've only got one pharma we can go to, and as you know, that can be a little tricky, to tailor what needs to be done. So we have to basically spend a lot of time, or a lot of my time goes into fundraising just to keep the lights on, basically. So that's a huge amount of our time goes into that. And I'll talk a little bit more about GAT8 scans as well. So our key objectives is to provide support, awareness and fundraising go hand in hand with awareness, I believe, and we have to. We are involved a lot with research and improving access to diagnostic and treatment options. So those are our 4 key objectives. So in regards to support, we hold annual education day. We have budget for our lovely nurse Avril, who's here, to work part-time for us for contact with patients, and we have patient meetings around the country, so we're trying to do everything. In terms of awareness, again, we do loads of fundraising, and we have to, just to keep going. But we're starting to build quite a community of patients who are now doing their own fundraising and getting behind what we're doing. And cycling is something that we've been drawn to. There's quite a big cycling community, and they've really got behind what we're doing. In terms of research, we've been involved with the research in New Zealand right from the beginning, and they really do involve us. They seek patient opinion at every opportunity as in from the beginning. It's not something that's asked afterwards when they've decided. They actually involve us when forming the project ideas. We have focus groups, and they say, as patients, what would you like to see in the research? And it's been phenomenal. And in doing so, it's helped them to gain ethical consent because they've involved patient voice. And ethical consent's really hard in our country to obtain. Been involved in the net registry, tumour banking, and in particular biomarker research, where they're looking at fragmented RNA, floating RNA, and looking for markers within there, and that's what I'm doing, donating blood towards that. And that project came about because our patients said to the researchers, we want a definitive test, we want a blood test to know if we've got nets. They're saying, why not? Why can't you do this? And these patients asked for that, and then when the researcher went and sought funding, they put they put up 3 ideas and said, these are the project ideas, and the other 2 project ideas didn't come from patients. Our one did come from patients, and they told the funders, and that was chosen for that reason. The funding came through because patient voice was included, and they were given $250,000 to run with that project, and it's been underway for a whole year now. Yeah. So again, patient voice, we can't underestimate what we can do. We're also part of ComNets, and I didn't put on there as well, we're part of a group within New Zealand. Sorry, I'm talking way too long. From the beginning, access was our, in terms of access, we had 2 major goals. First was to bring GAT8 scanning to New Zealand because we didn't have any in the country. And then our second goal is to bring PRT. So, as I mentioned this morning, clinicians have been trying for years to bring GAT8 to New Zealand. So we decided to get on our bikes and fundraise, and through that awareness and being in the media and talking about what we wanted, we just put the message out there. We're fundraising to bring GAT8. We had no idea whether we could do it. We really were just winging it. And we said, we're fundraising, we want to bring GAT8 to New Zealand, and then a private donor basically wrote us the cheque to ensure that it happened. And so we now have, on the 10th of November, we chose World Net Awareness Day to launch GAT8 scanning in New Zealand. Sorry, those photos are a bit blurry. But so it's been running for over a year now, and so we've had, I know there's at least 200 patients that haven't had to go to Melbourne. So I didn't mention that previously they had to fly to Melbourne and pay for it all themselves. And also it is helping with prostate cancer, so we know we're helping another cancer. So in about 3 weeks' time, we're on the next tour of New Zealand, which is this big cycling fundraising campaign that we do. And our message is to bring PRT to New Zealand. So again, we're being ambitious and putting it out there, but we know that we'll get media attention, and it's not going to be as simple as setting up GAT8, but there's an opportunity to get our message out there through this. So we've also had, some positive things happening, and we're now starting to get further into lobbying and talking to key politicians. And it's an election year for us as well, so we know this is the right time to really talk about PRT. We've got amazing clinicians, and there's awareness about our organisation growing. But in terms of access, it's pretty rough, and it's actually quite embarrassing, and we feel mortified for our clinicians that they have nothing to treat our patients with. There is a few options, but not what they need. And we come to these conferences and we're hearing about all these treatments, but we can't actually use them in our own country. So, it's frustrating. That jumped ahead. There's also a lot of competition in New Zealand. There's so many charities, so fundraising is getting difficult. And we're pretty under-resourced. Like I said, we're small, and so fatigue is definitely kicking in, and it is hard to keep the lights on in terms of for us to keep going, and also we've only got 4.4 million to hit, so we've got a small market. So I thought I'd finish with this slide, which I often do, which is Steve Jobs saying, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do, and that's all of us. And I think that's so relevant because, he did great things, and I think we're all trying to do the same. And that's me. Any questions?
About PRT, if it comes to the country.
Oh yes, sorry. I was worried about time. So at the moment, if the oncologist recommends PRT, our patients have to fly to Melbourne and self-fund it. So they pay it. It's starting at 50,000 New Zealand dollars for the 4 cycles, and of course, the travel and the accommodation and everything around that. So. Yeah, and so our patients have to go public and they put up fundraising pages, which they don't want to do. They're embarrassed and they don't want everyone to know about their illness, but they're forced to because it's such a huge amount of money.
So what are the challenge? I mean, what is the actual challenge?
And bringing it to New Zealand. Well, that's the thing, it can be done. We've been costing it up. We believe $2 million would establish it in our country, but it's bringing in the expertise, and we just have nothing in terms of a department in New Zealand. We don't even have PET scanners in the public system. So we're limited by expertise as well as, but we know it won't actually take much to set up. For an example, Keytruda costs $37 million, I think, for the first year in our country. We're only thinking $2 million, and we can help our patients. So,
I mean, I don't think it costs that much. If you can order it from Australia, we'll talk about it.
yeah, well, it won't be $50,000 if it's in New Zealand, but it's $50,000 for our patients to go back and forth. Yeah. Okay. Any other? Okay.